So things like that that are very, very sexist, and yet people hold on to these ideas thinking that, oh, it's part of our culture, we should treasure it, we should keep it the way it is. But that's not true. Just because it's part of your culture, it doesn't mean that it's right.
Hello, everyone watching. Welcome back to another day of Queer X Bodies. And today we'll be talking to Catherine Harry, aka A Dose of Kath. She is an absolute beacon of change. So, Kath, please tell us a bit about yourself and the work you do.
Thank you for having me, and I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be in the same presence as so many wonderful people in the series. So my name is Catherine, and I am the founder of the channel A Dose of Kath, which is on Facebook, YouTube, and all the social media network. I am a feminist, and what I talk about in my channel is intersectional feminism. So I also talk about culture because I'm from Cambodia. So I critique culture from a feminist perspective. I talk about gender, about LGBTIQ+, and most of all, I talk about sex education.
Wow, awesome. That's such a lovely array of things. And it's incredible that you've managed to find the intersection between these different things. So aside from, your YouTube persona, Kath, we wanted to know, like, how did you get started with this and who inspires you?
I feel like for me, feminism is a journey. So I started out when I was 17. I was working at an NGO, and I stumbled upon a YouTuber called Lazy Green. So Lazy Green has a channel that talks about sex education, about feminism, and I started binge watching her videos, and I did a reflection back on my life, and I thought, wait, I have been oppressed all my life and I didn't even know it. I have been spoon fed all of these ideas, all of these sexism, and conditioned into thinking that it's okay. So I started my blog, A Dose of Kath, to start talking about these topics, talking about sex, talking about gender, feminism. I started discovering people like Gloria Steinem and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So I am obsessed with the second wave feminist movement. It's also one of the movements that talked a lot about reproductive health, about sexual liberty. And I remember watching this documentary about how women during the second wave feminist movement would gather in a room and started looking at each other's vagina because they'd never seen vaginas before. So it was part of this huge revelation. So those are all my inspirations.
Wow, those are such interesting inspirations. And especially, myself as a queer person, I can say that we are also, insidiously oppressed in ways that we don't realize. And to confront, these sources of oppression can be great inspiration for taking action. So from bodily autonomy and safe abortion to LGBTQ rights and sexual reproductive health, you are, put simply, a champion for gender equality. So, I'm so curious, what drives you towards these changes? So why is it important that we broach these issues rather than brush them under the rug and start these important conversations?
It's important because personally to me, I am a woman. I was brought up in a conservative society, and I don't want to see the next generation of women experiencing the same things that I went through, experiencing all the racism, all the oppression, and I want to see changes. I don't want that to be happening anymore. I look at people around the world, I look at the marginalized community, the LGBTIQ community, people of color, women, and we are being treated like second-class citizens, and that's not okay. I read a book once that said, anger is actually when you realize that something is wrong with society and you want to make a change. And that's how I feel. I don't like the world the way it is right now. I don't like patriarchy. And sometimes it can be frustrating to be fighting a system that has been put in place for thousands of years. But I believe that if we don't start doing it now, then the next generation of women, of marginalized communities, would still be under oppression for God knows how long. And I don't want to see that anymore.
Wow, it brings me to tears to see the drive and motivation that you have to start these wonderful initiatives and efforts. And I'm sure so many people would like to thank you for the changes that you're already making. And when we're talking about, these changes and the intersections of them between culture, it's hard to ignore the really rich and complex, but also complicated, I think, intersection between these issues and Asian society specifically, because Asian society is so conservative in many places. Of course, there are liberal forces as well, but overall they're really conservative. And this makes our mission as activists quite difficult. So I'd like to know from you, has your advocacy and progressive content received, backlash? And what does that backlash reflect about the world and society that we Asians live in?
Yeah, I completely agree. Asian culture is beautiful and diverse, but at the same time, it's also very heavily patriarchal, and it can be misogynistic at times. Take, for example, Cambodian culture. We have this code that was written by a king, a male, of course, that is called the Women's Code of Conduct, that dictates what women should do to become a proper woman. So things like you should go to sleep after your husband, you should clean his feet, you shouldn't go to your neighbor's house for too long, you should cook for him. So things like that are very, very sexist, and yet people hold on to these ideas thinking that, oh, it's part of our culture, we should treasure it, we should keep it the way it is. But that's not true. Just because it's part of your culture, it doesn't mean that it's right. I mean, look at female genital mutilation. It's part of many countries' culture, but that doesn't make it any less wrong. So for me, because of what I'm doing, because I'm a woman and I talk about sex so openly, I get a lot of backlash. I have been deemed as like the sex demon of the country.
What a title to have.
Exactly. It's like, it's an honor, to be honest. I have been accused of being other nationalities because they say, according to them, that a proper Cambodian woman wouldn't be talked so blatantly about topics like this. So they think that they accuse me of being other nationality, they accuse me of being a slut. It's just, it's been a difficult road, but at the same time, I also get a lot of support from young people, from women telling me that I have talked about things that they never had the courage to talk about, but now it's opening up a conversation.
It's ridiculous to hear about, the form of backlash you get, but also wonderful to know that, and really, really reassuring to know that among that, you also have a wave of support, as you should. And I completely agree that so many people predicate their hate or their rejection of these changes on culture. And, culture should not ever vindicate somebody's oppression or inequality. And there's always room for culture to change for the better. So aside from your incredible YouTube channel, which everyone watching, do go check it out, please. And your awesome blogging career as well. You're also a journalist in the Washington Post. You're a consultant at Marie Stopes International and soon to be published author of 2 books. So wow, what a list. What, in your opinion, is the most meaningful way to make change for women empowerment, LGBTQ rights? You have it. And what advice do you have for aspiring change makers watching this video right now?
I don't think there's any one particular way of creating change, of being a change maker. It's about coming together as a community and find different ways that you can make a difference. And there is no way that is more meaningful or less meaningful than the other. I want them to know that their voices matter. They might think that they're just one person, but every little voice, it combined together, it will become a force to be reckoned with. Look at Gloria Steinem. Not everyone can be Gloria Steinem, can spearhead a movement, but at the same time, Gloria Steinem got to where she did, got to where she is right now, because so many people actually joined in with her and went to the protests and demonstrations. Maybe it's online movement, maybe it's just hashtags, maybe it's just standing up to bullies, or maybe it's standing up to your family members, your friends, maybe it's going to actual demonstration and spearheading the movement. So there are so many ways to make a change, make a difference. You can always do it. Your voices matter.